Hello. Today I want to talk to you about the subject of social science. A lot of people know it as psychology, sociology, anthropology, criminal justice, public relations, various types of marketing, whether it's brand marketing, email marketing, curriculum marketing, guerrilla marketing, mobile marketing. There's over 60 different types of marketing. So it goes into various areas. But when you're involved with digital marketing or any type of business, understanding the foundation of social science, aka psychology, is vitally important. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background after I define the word social science. Social science, the meaning is this: the relationship that a person has to another person, place, or thing. That's basically a simplistic definition of a social science. It's the studying of the relationship of people, how people react to other people, how people interact with other places and things. Your nouns that we learned in English years ago in school. A noun is a person, place, or thing. So that's basically what a social science is. Criminology studies people, how they react to other people, places, and things. So does anthropology, and that basically does it in groups. Sociology does it in groups. Public speaking, it can be one on one, a conversation, or it can be a group, a nation, an organization, a business, etc., etc. So, a little bit about my background. I was brought up in the Brookside Rockview area projects located in New Haven, Connecticut. It's 5 minutes away from Southern Connecticut, and it's about 12 minutes by car away from Yale University. And Yale is known throughout the world, and Southern Connecticut is a very good school too. In my upbringing, by observing the social dynamics between my father and mother, myself, my older brother, I have one, my older sister, I have just one, and my friends and the teachers in school, there are certain things that you learn before you ever graduate from high school and or go to college. Certain things like how your mother and father act towards each other when they're happy, sad, or angry. You observe that as a child. That's important later on when you get involved with a business, an area of expertise, or a skill when dealing with other people, because you learn how to read language cues, whether they're verbal or physical body language cues. Even if you're at a distance, there are certain vibrations that people give off. People often forget, and many of you are not aware of this, that our brains are like radio transmitters. They exhibit positive or negative flows of energy. You're going to see how this all ties in to marketing, social engagement, lead generation, growing organic traffic, and increasing your revenue and marketing. You have to study and go back to the foundation. Number one, before you even try to get any leads, any conversions, or anything along those lines, you need to remember and write down your background. How were you brought up? Where did you grow up? As I stated before, I grew up in projects, and I'm not ashamed of that because there are various things that you learn when you're in the projects. My mother and father, again, interacted. They were up 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Doing what? Helping my father to get ready for work. He had to be to work at 7 o'clock, Pratt Whitney. He worked 7 to 3. Yet he was up at 4:30, fully dressed, reading his paper, and my mother would be making his lunch. And when I got up at 5 o'clock, he was already fully dressed and drinking his coffee. How can you use that later on in business? How can I use it and how do I use it? Early preparation, teamwork, and pre planning. That was his plan Monday through Friday. And he worked a part time job after the full time. What does that do to me? What does it do for some of you? That shows going the extra mile, doing what you have to do, diligence. Every business person worth their salt wants to work with someone who knows how to push further and go the extra mile. That's what my dad did. He worked at Pratt& Whitney for about 25 years. What does that tell me? Diligence, patience, discipline, understanding time management. You can use those concepts in any type of business. So some of you are concerned, especially during this time. I want to get some leads, I want to get some sales. Slow it down, take it down a notch, get a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, get your computer out, and start remembering and writing down where you were brought up. What were the things you observed? Number one, in your family, between your mother and father, and you and your siblings. Number two, between the people around you in the community. How did you relate? How did you communicate? Number three, the interaction between you and your teachers in grade school. Go all the way back, reflect and think and write it down. One example I will give of my connections and social engagement of the guys that I grew up with when it came to sports. When I saw the gentleman on the basketball court getting an attitude and wanting to fight basically for no reason, it turned me off from working out on the court with them. There were times I would shoot the ball by myself, get in my backyard with just a friend of mine, and we would use the trash can. Why? I was avoiding contention. I was avoiding confusion. So that was a preventative method of not getting involved with people who did not know how to control their temper. Character development, understanding those character traits, knowing who was on the court. Once they got on the court, they had a pattern. In order for you to be successful in the home, in your business, in your profession, you have to understand your weaknesses, your strengths, and your target audience's weaknesses and their strength. What are the strong points? What are the weak points? How do you capitalize on the weak points? These things we can go back. Again, my background is psychology, social engagement. I'll give you an example of myself in the school. There was a substitute teacher one time, and name was Mrs. Gargantua. I still remember her in third grade. She was on the board writing something down, and one of the gentlemen who I grew up with, Blaney Bostic, he liked her, that puppy love. He took off and jumped on her back, and she got upset and said, "Blaney, what did you jump on my back for? What did you jump on my back for?" And he was sitting there and staring and acting silly, and then she called the principal, and the principal came in there, and back in those days, the principal, especially a black one, he spanked him right in front of the whole class and then took him down to the office and called his mother. What does that tell me? How do I use that in business? When there's a problem, I observed how the teacher handled it and how the principal handled it. She followed protocol. She did not get out of line and use her hands to harm the student. She rebuked him. She called the principal. So, what does that mean? There's collaboration again. There's submitting to her superiors and the policies of the school district. Understanding policies when dealing with a customer or a client in your business is important, especially if you're freelancing. You have to understand their guidelines. See, you have to go back instead of being anxious and wanting to do things in a hurry. Take it down a notch. When I was in middle school with two gentlemen, Vaughn Driffin and Jerome Harper, they both liked the same young lady in Sheridan Middle School. Vaughn lived out in Brookside. He was cool. I grew up with Vaughn. Jerome Harper was cool. But every time they passed each other, because of this young lady, they would bump each other, drop their books, and start slapboxing. Now that freaked me out because I'm trying to go to class, and it got to the point where they did it so much. After a while, they did it. Somebody said, "Man, I'm not even gonna watch. I'm going to class. You know what's gonna happen. Jerome's gonna win." You know, and he did all the time, and he would lean back and go like this, eyeball. Back then that was a sarcastic thing we did to each other, when you got the goods up on somebody. What did that tell me? Jerome Harper was from a different area, Newhallville. Vaughn Driffin was from Brookside, my area. There's your demographics. What caused Vaughn and Jerome to get into that playful, competitive, contentious situation 5 days a week? I mean, they did it month after month after month. Vaughn respected Jerome. Jerome respected Vaughn. They never really fought after school. They did it in the hallway, inside the school. So that tells me I have to watch my surroundings. Being situationally aware of your surroundings, of the competition, of the weaknesses within your organization, of the employees that are doing well, of those that are not producing well. All of that is important in marketing. Before I get into the academics, I want to just lay this foundation for some of you out there struggling. You're looking for this magic solution. Look within yourself. Again, look at where you were brought up, how you were brought up, and how you interacted with others. Another incident, we were going to a party, what we call across town in the Grand Avenue area. And one of the gentlemen made this statement. It was at night and it was in the fall. And one made this statement, and it shocked me. He said, "We got to watch out for these certain type of people around here because if they catch you, they'll jump you." What was he doing? He was conveying a message of a weakness in that area that others thought was a strong point. This certain group of people thought it was a strong point to jump other males that weren't from their area. Lawrence Frazier, on the other hand, he was a good boxer, good street fighter, but he warned us. What does that mean in business? Pre-warning or giving information beforehand of someone's strength and weaknesses or a group's strength or weaknesses is vitally important in marketing. So some of you don't realize the treasure that you have within you. And I'm sharing some of my background with you to help you to improve and maximize your potential in your area of business and expertise. After a while, after I graduated out of high school, I started working with different pastors. I've taught Sunday school for over 17 years. I've orchestrated and directed and strategized outreach work. Who are we going to see in the hospital? Which hospital are we going to? What day are we going to go? What time? Time management, structured strategy. When we visit this person in the projects, door to door Ashman Street, we've been here before. We're going to do it this way. But when we go visit Sister So and so, because she has a male in the house who is jealous of other males coming around her, whether it's someone giving the gospel or not, she may get this type of reaction from him. What was going on? How do you relate that to the professional realm of business? It's called critical thinking, red thinking, analytical reasoning, aka psychology. Demographics again. The target audience. We were targeting the people in Ashman Street projects for an outreach ministry. We did it in the snow. We did it when it was sunny, and the people welcome us, even though someone was putting out joints and all of that. I'm just going to be real. I mean, we dealt with the people where they were in order to help them to get where they need to be. There's your tracking preparation, your Google Analytics, your SEO tracking. The people were at this point in their lives. They wanted to be over here. So, how are we going to take the middle ground and get them from point A to point B in their character building while still allowing them to be themselves, create self analysis for themselves so that they can reflect and then take from that reflection and grow in character and maximize their full potential of their character and even recognize the skills within them? Employee recognition, giving credit where credit was due. Even as the leader of the outreach group, we would have meetings and I would ask, what type of ideas do you guys have? And if it was worth doing, we implemented that. That's synergy. My mother often said, two heads are better than one. Synergy, taking two groups or two people for a common goal and maximizing or optimizing your human capital to get the best results in the less amount of time, the least amount of time. Your human capital, that's your greatest asset. That's your experience. That's your education. That's your skills all wrapped up in one. So again, a lot of you are anxious because of what's going on in the world today. Number one, you need not panic because it's going to get better. It's not going to get worse. It's going to get better. You have to know who to listen to get this type of information. And those are the type of people I listen to. Credible people who have serious insight into global situations. How does that deal with your business? Well, right now, many people's businesses are being affected by this situation. And they're fearing because of the unknown and the uncertainty. However, if you had wisdom and insight that the sun is going to shine after this storm, you would not be fretting and you would not be in fear. This is not a put down, it's just reality talk, real talk. Many of you are fretting because you don't know what to do. You don't have a recourse, but some of us have a recourse. And then you have people that say they want you to help them and you reach out to them and they just forget about you. That's okay because rejection comes with the territory. But the scriptures also say, whatsoever a man or woman sow, so shall you also reap. Don't be surprised what happens to that young lady when they get to XYZ level and start working with certain type of people. And you're still sitting back, not getting the conversions that you wanted, not increasing in revenue, not increasing organic traffic and lead generation, not ranking good with Google. Don't be surprised when that young lady, that young man that you turned down because of ignorance, you didn't want to pay them, you didn't understand their value, you didn't take the time to research their LinkedIn profile or his or hers or their background. You treated them like a cookie cutter number through the ATS tracking system. application tracking system, just like a number, that conventional way of thinking. And now look what happened. Look what happened. So these are some of the things you want to look at. Who you are, self analysis, especially now because people can't go to sports events. You can't go to the movies like you used to. You have time now to sit down and write down your likes and dislikes from when you were, let's say, maybe even 12 until now. Write them down on a piece of paper because that will help you even to bring out new skills and greater potential that you have already within you and may not even know about it. Self discovery is one of the greatest things in the world. And all this is a social science study, understanding how you operate first and foremost before you try to understand how your competition or somebody else operates. You have to understand you better. Now it's time to understand more of you. Isolation, take a walk. Get away from the kids, get away from the wife, get away from the dog, the cat, the frog. Take some self examination time and recognize where you grew up at. And I mentioned my background of living near two colleges for a reason. When I was younger, before I even thought about going back to school, there were certain people in our family that went to college. My brother started going to college. He pulled out. There was another young lady, a cousin that went to college. Everybody was bragging about her. Because we were close proximity to Southern Connecticut and Yale, I believe my mother, who grew up in Ashman Street, which is 5 minutes away from Yale, right off Dixwell Avenue, had the inclination. Yale's over there. We're here in the projects. If I want to better myself, ooh, college, better education, and then pass that principle down to us. Now, when she said it, I didn't grasp it till years later. I thought about it right before I got out of high school and thought about going down south to Georgia Tech and different schools, but I got caught up in other negative things in the streets and I got distracted. What am I saying? Sound advice is good coming from someone else other than you or me, someone smarter and older. And I'm going to get a little personal. A lot of you will be surprised if I gave you my age. Some of you are young enough to be my daughter and my son. I'll just leave that right there. I want you to understand, you got to know who you're dealing with. You can't just look at a LinkedIn profile. You got to open your heart and open your spirit to receive a positive or negative vibe. And it may scare some of you about this young lady, about this young man. But if you embrace it, if it's a positive vibe, you'll grow and they'll grow as you connect, reach out, and collaborate. That's why I'm mentioning things like the certain locations where we grew up. My mother grew up 5 minutes from Yale. Then we lived out in Brookside. I left there in 85. However, Southern Connecticut, every time you came to Brookside, you couldn't get in Brookside without passing by Southern Connecticut. You can go through Fifth Street, and then you can go to another street right off Dixwell Avenue. You can go by Hill House, but all of those roads took you right by Southern. So whether you were leaving Brookside or coming in, you always saw Southern Connecticut. Education, and sometimes they have parties, and we would go to the parties there back in the day. Still, an educational landmark. So as years went on, then it started dawning on me, I would hear my mother's voice. Go back to school. My father wanted to go back to school to be a trucker. However, he didn't pursue it. He stayed at Pratt Whitney and he did well for himself. Bought himself a house and things of that nature. Did well for himself. Wasn't struggling anymore. So Even he himself had dropped out of school years ago and went back to get his GED. And I didn't even know it. He was going to night school. He finally came out and told us. He wasn't ashamed about it. Again, he completed his education. What did that tell me? Don't quit. You may not have caught the vision of your mother and father to go back to school and to increase your knowledge and wisdom then, but you finally got it. It's never too late. If you're still breathing, if you're still alive, you need to take this time to learn a new skill or reach out to someone to help you with the skills that you already have. Now, I'm going to get into some tidbits about lead generation. The first thing about lead generation you need to understand, like I said, is your own background. Before you even try to gain a lead, look in the mirror at yourself, re examine your likes and dislikes, re examine how you were brought up. Now, I understand that marketing is not about you so much, but it's about your target audience. But you can't properly and effectively solve a target audience's problems if you cannot solve your own. What did they say? Charity starts where? Not abroad, at home. A lot of you forgot that because you're so caught up in the business and the this and the that and the this and that concerning the situation that's going on in the world today. But the first thing in lead generation is who is your main customer? Who is your target audience? Who are you talking to? Whose problem are you trying to solve? I reflect back to Ashman Street. Those beautiful people were our target audience, the people in the projects. Later on, my wife and I would go down to the New Haven Green and feed the homeless, buy them food, give them toothpaste and deodorant and things to sanitize themselves, and give them a flyer if they wanted to get free from alcohol. There was a gentleman on Dixwell Avenue, Brother Richardson, that had a full blown funded program for people on drugs and alcohol to get off. So we would give them that flyer. They were our target audience, the drug addicts, the alcoholics, the homeless, the hungry, the needy. And then we would visit. At that time, it was St. Raphael and Yale were separate. Now they're together. We would visit the hospitals. And also we would visit Leeway Hospital. A lot of people don't know about Leeway. Leeway Hospital is located on State Street in New Haven, and it's the last stop for AIDS patients. That's social engagement. That's social interaction. So all of those things put together help me now and can help you now on who is your ideal customer, your ideal client. Make your buyer's persona. Where do they live? How old are they? What do they like to do? Are they single? Are they wed? Are they divorced? What age group are they in? What culture do they come from? What are their norms? What are their values? All of the analytical reasoning you need to be aware of in order to effectively help them. You got to know who's who. And they, as a customer, as you present that and study that, will understand your value. Now, I will say this: people that don't understand your value, you have no business dealing with them because those are time wasters. They're what we call Peter, pain in the backside with the A word. They're Peters. You don't even want to deal with them. There's certain questions you can ask to vet them out and just toss them to the side because that's a waste of time. You got to understand the value. Just like in the musical world, you have your Fender guitars, your Stratocasters, you have your Gibson guitars, and then you have your Ibanez guitar. A lot of you haven't heard of Ibanez. Ibanez start about $1,000 up. You can get a nice Gibson bass for 500, you know, and they can go up too. But an Ibanez is a different type. It's a unique type of a guitar. Stanley Clark, one of the greatest bass players in the world, man's a genius out of the ghetto of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, actually designed several bass. a limited number. You get a Stanley Clark bass guitar, that sets you in another class economically and music. Sets you in another class musically. Okay? Then you have your violin, a Stradivarian. It's an Italian made violin, and they start at $1 million dollars and up. A different class. Demographics. Who's buying a Stradivarian? Who's buying an Ibanez? What is their area of expertise, their occupation? Where do they live? What do they like? Are they married? Are they single? Are they divorced? What country do they live in? What city? What town? What is the population? What is the medium of income in that area? All of your demographics deal with your target audience. So the next thing you want to do is, how do you present your capabilities? How do you showcase your skills? Everybody talked about Michael Jordan when he came out, but how many remember Dr. J? Michael Jordan was excellent and a lot of the others as well, but Dr. J was the man who was the trailblazer for everything else. He set the precedent. Jim Brown on the football field, Muhammad Ali in boxing, Floyd Mayweather in boxing, Marvin Hagler in boxing, Jack Johnson. They set the precedent in the sports realm. So you have to showcase your capabilities and show value. What problems are you going to solve for your client? And we're going to show some ways how you can exemplify that a little further. But you want to even ask other people, your colleagues, give it to them like this. Get some colleagues on the phone or in person and say, Mr. So and so or young lady so and so, I like to for you to explain in your own words what I do as an entrepreneur. Can you explain what I do? And then you can get a group and say, can you guys and you young ladies explain what I do? People that know you. And when they explain what you do, if you hear anything that sparks you up, that you can take and better your business, you should write it down and record it anyway. But pay special attention to that because there may be some strengths they see and there may be some weaknesses that they see. You need to examine both in order to present your capabilities on a more stronger platform. When I met my martial arts teacher over 20 years ago, the gentleman was only 16 years old, and what he did in front of me up until this day, I can see it just as clear. How he showcases capabilities, I have never seen anyone do the same thing in person. He took me, he was from Ashland Street, took me in back of this school. St. Martin's was there at the time. They tore it down now. Took me back there and said, asked me, what did I want to see? I said, man, do anything, because I wasn't familiar with the arts. I said, I'm not familiar with the arts, just do anything. He had his shirt off, had these shoes on back in the day. We called them marshmallows, a black pair with a white heel, and had these purplish cranberry dark pants on with his shirt off. So he started going through what they call the Carters, his movements. True story. All of a sudden, I lost track of this young man. And I'm figuring, we just met. He's playing a trick on me now. He ran off somewhere, but I'm saying to myself, he couldn't have ran because I would have saw him. There's no bushes around here with leaves on them. The bushes were all bare. So he's not behind there. He couldn't have ran behind the building because I would have saw him. I felt something say, look up in the air. So I look up. This brother is doing spinning kicks like a helicopter, and his legs were a blur. I saw a piece of his pants leg, and I remember his heel going like this. We call it a spinning back kick, or heel kick rather. Spinning heel kick is what it was, excuse me. He showcased his capabilities and he landed in silence in a perfect horse stance. Now, mind you, I had been checking and looking for this gentleman for a few seconds. He was up in the air, suspended at the age of 16. He exhibited his capabilities, and from that day forward, I had no problem walking around Ashman Street projects or going anywhere with this young man because I knew I had strong protection. I mean, combat skilled. Going to my background again, we don't train for trophies, strictly combat and self-defense. So you have to know your capabilities and how do you showcase them. Just like my instructor kept showcasing his over and over and training us in different concepts. And there's 22 business concepts involved in the martial arts. And it all leads to lead generation. It all leads to marketing. It all leads to video production because the same discipline you need to start those things are the same type of disciplines that are involved in the martial arts. I'll name a few: time management, humility, flexibility, creativity, analytical reasoning, collaboration, recognizing others for the good things they do, understanding your strengths, understanding your weaknesses. What type of students are you going to help? Your target audience. I just named 10. I just named 10. It's the same thing you use. How do you present yourself to someone in the street who is in a high level of intensity, problem solving? How do you verbally de escalate a situation that's contentious and someone who's aggressive? Like a cop one time. Somebody was angry and came at the cop, and the guy had his head down like this. The guy was going through some changes with his family, and he had his head down, and he came at the cop, and there was a Yale cop, and the cop did this. I'll never forget it. He put his hand on his gun and said, "Back up." And the guy would come forward. He said, "Back up." And the guy would stop. The guy came forward again and said, "Back up." See, his hand motion, two hand motions, one on his hip where his gun was, and the other one here saying no. Stop. Psychologically de escalating that situation. It's the same thing you need in business. What if you get a client who's difficult? What if you get a difficult customer? He or she is a hot lead, and you want to bring them over the edge for full conversion. How are you going to de-escalate and maneuver through those questions, those doubts, maybe some insecurities? Maybe they're going through something personal and it spills over into the business deal. Resolving problems. All that's taught in the martial arts without even going to school. All of that is taught, and I say this proudly, all of that is taught when you grow up in the projects in a city. I'll move to the next one. So number 2 is, how do you present your capabilities? They'll understand the value that you bring. Like I understood the value that my martial arts teacher brings. A lot of what you see in my character today is due to the upbringing in my family, upbringing in the projects, running the streets. You got to be situationally aware when you go in certain areas. We don't go over there at this time of the day. We go over here. We do this over there. We don't do that over there. We watch out for these people because, things happen. So as I look at my notes, now number 3 is, what does your ideal customer want? There's a song back in the 70s by the Intruders called "I Want to Know Your Name." The gentleman in the song is saying, this is what I want. I want to know your name. What does the customer want you to know? Where are they hurting? What are their pain points? Every time we went to the hospital, usually we would get a referral to see someone, and they would say, well, so-and-so's in the hospital and they have this type of situation. We knew when we went to Leadway that all of those people in there were dying from AIDS. So we knew their situation, but we always knew ahead of schedule, 9 times out of 10, the type of affliction they were dealing with. Why? So that if they were in a depressed state of mind, we'd understand and be empathetic. Another thing from the martial arts, you need empathy. Even while training in the martial arts, I would get mad at my own body. My instructor said, don't get mad at your body, Mike. Gotta be patient. You're just learning. Takes time. There's patience, there's diligence. Same thing you use in any business. Okay? So you want to understand the pain points of your target audience. You want to understand your competition. You want to do your interviews, your surveys. You can do that through polls, even. Or you can just simply ask, what do you need from me? How can I help you? You go in the store. You know, previously, a lot of stores, and a lot of people are not going out, but I'm saying previously, you've experienced it. You go in the store. How can I help you? They want to know your needs. Okay, so that's important. Number four is being reactive versus being proactive. I dealt with a gentleman today who wanted me to get some lead generations for him. And I basically let him know you have to do your homework. What content are you putting up? What social media platforms are you on? How are you showing your capabilities? You can't just say I'm on LinkedIn, excuse me, or on Facebook or Twitter and just lay there and expect people to pick up the phone or click that link. They're not going to do it if you don't put the bait out there for them to bite on. You can't be lazy. You have to be proactive. You have to be a doer. You have to be a go-getter. That's another thing we learned in the martial arts. If you, my instructor would go through these motions and it would look so easy. And he said, this is the style I'm going to teach you, Mike. It's called the dragon style. I know others, but this is my main style. Charlie Foot, Southern Chinese boxing. Straight out the cap. Oh yeah, straight out. And he would go through these motions and say, don't you want it? Don't you want it, Mike? What was he doing? He was using influence and enthusiasm, aka persuasive psychology. He was using the narrative voice, storytelling. Don't you want it, Mike? I started here, then I trained with this guy, and now I'm at this level, telling his personal testimony. You call them, and I call them in the marketing world, testimonials. That even can lead to case studies, problem solving by different ways of comparison. And in college, we call those comparative essays. SEO is nothing but reference of an essay in text citation, a reference, or an unnoted bibliography, because in order for a person to go back to that source that you wrote about in that essay, you have to have a link. Your SEO optimization. All college libraries are optimized for SEO. There's your research. And I'm not boasting. I took an accelerated course. You know what that means? That means more work and less time. So there's your deadline structure right there. And some of you have as well. Even if you didn't take an accelerated course, you have to have that assignment in by a certain time. And if you didn't, your grade became lower and not higher. When it was time to train in the arts, we're going to meet at the graveyard right across from Yale. You know, that was done for several reasons. One, it was close to my instructor's house. And two, back in those days, people had a fear of graveyards, and it was to overcome the fear of death. Because the dead don't hurt you, it's the living you have to watch out for. We were going to meet at a certain time. And I would show up usually a little early, maybe 20 to 30 minutes. And many times, my instructor would get a little teed off because the guys that wanted to learn didn't show up. You got to show up in your business. You got to show up and know what your clientele wants. You got to know the value you bring to the table. You have to be proactive. You have to go after what you want. You have to expand and grow in your knowledge and understanding of your area of expertise, what we call the niche, NICHE. So I was his best student. He'll tell you today, Mike was my best student. He always showed up. He never canceled out on me. And I was coming from Brookside. Back in those days, I didn't have no car. Sometimes I didn't have no bus fare. How'd I get there? Back in those days, it was safe to hitchhike. We called it the corner down in Brookside. Everybody knew about the corner. There was one right by Hill House, hitchhiking corner. There was one in Brookside. Called it the corner. Who's on the corner, Mike? So and so. That's how you got around. But I ran after it. Another gentleman by the name of George Logan, Grandmaster out of New Haven, lives in Hartford now. He actually would skip school while he was a teenager and take the train down in Bronx and start training. Yeah, he real good now. George ain't no joke. Diligence. So that's being proactive. You gotta go after it. So what else do we want to do? How do the customers find you? Is number 5. This is your 5th tip. How do customers find you? And I'll do a quick recap. How do customers find you? Do they find you through direct mail? Are you in a magazine? Is there email that they can get a hold of you of? Trade shows in the past? Business luncheons? Are you doing virtual coffees now through Zoom? Are you doing Anchor, FM, free podcasts? Can they find you there? Can they find you through radio? Can they find you through LinkedIn? And if you're on LinkedIn, you cannot be lazy. And right now, there's actually no excuses unless you're in a medical situation where you can't function properly. You need to be making more content. You need to be making more connections. You need to be commenting on other people's posts. That's proactive. You can't sit back and just expect because you're on LinkedIn, somebody's going to come and want your services. You look at television. I look at television. Every few seconds when you're looking at a program, there's a commercial. Why? They're telling you, we're here. We're offering you this if you want it. Come get it. 20 minutes later, we're here. I counted one time the amount of commercials that was going on through a certain program. There were 23 commercials within an hour. 23. Because why? Repetition goes into the memory bank. 95% of what you see with your eyes, you retain that knowledge. 95% of what you see with your eyes, you retain that knowledge. That's why many of you who have time need to be making videos like this or similar. They don't be as long as this. They can be short, 10, 15 minutes. Share some valuable information. So you want to do that. Number 5, making sure the customers can find you. Are you on Reddit? Are you on Blogger? Are you on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Quora, TikTok? These are different things. Are you making Vimeo, Vimeo videos? Are you guest posting in someone else's magazine? I've ghost written for Henhouse Publications. I've guest write for AnthonyGonzalez.com. I guest write and offer content for the Home Business Magazine. I help William Tampel in Kenya with his My Valid Goal, and I help, and I'm a partner and brand ambassador, I'm not ashamed to say it, for Willie the Bam Johnson, who a lot of you see on LinkedIn now. This man at the age of 17 in the rough streets of Baltimore learned branding. This young man got Walgreens to sponsor him while he was yet a teenager so that he can go to Madison Square Garden and perform and win first place. He's a 6-time martial arts champion. Back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and I believe the 90s, the hit TV series was WMAC Masters with Lateef Crowder. A lot of you know Lateef, the guy with the braids and does capoeira. Lateef Crowder was on there with some other good people. And now he wrote a book, redid it, called The Complete Martial Artist. So he's showing up. People can find him, WillieTheBam.com on Google. They can find him on YouTube. They can find him on Facebook. He does live streams almost every morning between 2 and 3 o'clock. He's got a good following. He's a renowned, known martial artist. He knows people like Ray Ray from South Central LA, that movie. Brian Mims is his spiritual mentor. They talk. He knows Billy Blanks. He's been in the company of Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter. He met Floyd Mayweather Sr. just recently down in Atlantic City for the Black Belt Awards. He knows Dana White of the UFC and others. Legend Terry Oso Cassell. Why am I saying that? He's being proactive. People know where to find him. He has a martial arts school and has had it for over 20 years. He is a community activist. The mayor of the city knows him personally and trains with him. His school is right behind the mayor's office. So he went from street crime in jail to being an author, a business owner, a father, a husband, and a mentor. So he's exhibiting his value, and people of value talk to him. Him and Billy Blanks talk. That's his spiritual mentor. You know Billy Blanks, the one who created Tybo, the actor. And I'm saying that for a reason because a lot of you need to realize if another young lady, if another young man or a group has value and you have a need, don't be afraid to reach out, whether they're in Australia or America or France, because they're all on LinkedIn. There's some excellent professionals. Cher Jones, brand strategist, Nick F. Nelson, LinkedIn's top brandpreneur, not bottom, top. And I say that for a reason. Mary Henderson from Australia, Ruthie Bowles. There's a whole lot more. I can go on and on. So that's the fifth thing. How do customers find you? Number 6, you want your Google Analytics and use HubSpot to track your progress and to spy on your competitors. People have been doing it for years. Different cultures do it. There's your anthropology studies. There's your sociology. There's your psychology. Because in order to know what the criminal is doing, you have to observe. They call it, what is the MO? Mode of operation. What motivates the criminal to operate a certain way? Your FBI profiles are highly skilled and knowledgeable in psychology. Psychology helps you to establish authority. You activate persuasive psychology. Everything you write, say, and show is relevant to the niche or the pain points of your client or that organization you're trying to help. And all of those three do one thing. They create influence. They influence your ratings to rank higher with Google, and you want to influence your clients' ratings to rank higher with Google. They influence growing organic traffic. They influence lead generation, and they influence increasing revenue. Pat Flynn said it like this: your smart strategy, it's the quantitative analysis and the qualitative analysis. Your quantitative is your data, your numbers, your laws of probability. You see it in boxing. This one's a favorite to this number, to that number, the law of probability. Then your qualitative analysis are the questions. How do you get your buyer's persona? Who? Your what? Your why? Your how? Your when? All of those things are involved with your qualitative analysis, your surveys, your polls, all of that good stuff is involved there. So the last mention is Pat Flynn SMART. S is for specific. Again, S is for specific. You want to be specific about your target audience, and what you do to help them to maximize their full potential. M is the measurements or measurable. How are you measuring your progress with the client? Again, your Google Analytics is good, your HubSpot, those are the two best right there. And then A stands for achievable action. You want to give them solutions that they can walk out. Just like my martial art teacher would show me something and say, now demonstrate it, Mike. Okay, we worked out for 8 hours many days, and now go home over the weekend. We not may not meet Saturday, but I want you to work on this technique, work on this card, and when I come back, I want to see how you're doing with it. It's tracking my progress. Again, before I even went into college, I was learning these things beforehand. But you know what happens? When people get a lot of dynamite, some people can't contain it. But you know what? It's only for a select few. I'm telling you this because there are some of you that have a lot of knowledge, a lot of get up and go, and it may seem like certain people aren't coming towards you. That's okay. You want all the no's up front so the yeses can come down the pipeline. And I want to throw this in before I finish the smart. Willie the Bam Johnson also is in touch with Damon John of Shark Tank. Like I said, some of you are sitting there looking and just, I don't know. I'm letting you know the value. That's all I'm saying. I'm letting you know the value. The value. I mean, there are certain people that certain people know. And especially at a time like this, when this blows over, and it will, you don't know who you're going to need and how they can help you. But I'm letting you know right now, there's help out there. So we did the R, relative things, relevancy. T is time bound, your time frames. You want to keep everything. I want to get this done this week, this day, this month, these certain amount of months, this year for this client, this time span for this organization. You want to keep everything documented and tracked. So I'm just going to recap these real quick as I look at my notes. Lead generation, notes, and understand that the foundation is all psychology. Number one is, who is your main ideal customer? That's your buyer persona, your target audience, understanding your value. Number two is, how do you present your capabilities, and what is the value? And I'm going to add this right now. What's your mission statement? You need a mission statement. You need a purpose statement. If, let's say, you're a architect, you need a purpose statement. What is your purpose? Write it down. How can you help your ideal client? Write that down. There's your purpose statement. Okay. One of mine is to be recognized as a inspirational advisor by helping students and business-minded people on how to maximize their full potential. So I said who I am, what I do, and how I help, and who I help college graduate students and business-minded people. So that falls in league with those that may want to get involved with the business and those that have a business but need to resolve certain problems. It's all analytical reasoning, thinking, and you work with other people. Teamwork is excellent because what you don't know, someone else may cover. And so it's a collaboration. So number two is, how do you present your capabilities? Again, you need a mission statement, a purpose statement. Number three, what does your ideal customer want to know about you? They want to know how you can solve that problem. What are their pain points? Number four is reactive versus being proactive. And you don't want to be reactive. You don't want to wait for someone to come to you. You want to get in their face. Back in the day, when there was a contentious situation, especially with two men, there's a man, so-and-so was all up in so-and-so's face. You can't miss them because they're all up in the face. You know, the situation, you can't avoid it. The same thing with commercials today. Okay, so number five, how do customers find you? You want to be available through especially social media and videos. You want to get involved with that. And if you're afraid to do a video, like I told Casey Woods, Kasey Woods, who's on LinkedIn now, she's a brand new. When I first met Casey, she was afraid to look at herself basically in the mirror. I said, Casey, here's what you do. Take yourself and just talk to yourself in the mirror. Advance from that and put some chairs out there, talk to the chairs. And get some family members or friends, sit them down and talk in front of them. Now you can't stop Casey. So that's number 5, how do customers find you? Number 6 are you're tracking your progress. That's your Google Analytics and HubSpot. And last but not least is Pat Flynn's strategy called SMART, which is very effective. You can also use PLAN. P is for preparation. L is for lay it out line upon line. A is for being active. N is for never think small. So until later, those are your tips on lead generation. Bye bye.